Aloha, I'm Jessica Lani Rich, host of the Jessica Lani Rich TV show. It's an inspirational show where we go out in the community and we talk to people who are making a difference. On this week's show, we have Deborah Spencer-Chun, President and CEO of Adult Friends for Youth, Maumalanga, Director of Redirectional Services for Adult Friends for Youth, and Linda Santos, Director of the Honolulu Zoo. And be sure to stay tuned for the animal clip of the week. We'll have all that and more, and I'll be back right after this.
Unique, majestic, inspiring. Hawaii's hidden gem on the windward side. Just a short scenic drive will take you to one of the most extraordinary locations in the world. We specialize in conferences, meetings, retreats, business functions, social events, and off-premise catering. Delectable cuisine, stunning panoramic views, and excellence in first-class service. Let Ko'olau Ballrooms and Conference Center make your event a memorable experience.
I am very pleased to have as my special guest on the show, Deborah Spencer-Chun. She is the CEO of Adults Friends for Youth. Aloha and welcome, Deborah.
Thank you for having me.
It's great to see you again. For those people who are not familiar with Adults Friends for Youth, what do you do?
Well, Adult Friends for Youth is a program that helps high-risk kids. Our mission, in a nutshell, is really to help stop the violence in the community and build safer and healthier communities for our kids.
How do you get to know who these high-risk children are? And when you use the term high risk, can you define that for us?
Well, I use the term high risk, which is different from at risk. Our kids are really involved in some negative activities. Oftentimes, our kids are involved in some type of violence, either in the community or on the campus. But so that's where we're at in a nutshell. Our kids are much higher than just the average kid who might be at risk for truancy or so forth.
Sure, and how do they come to you? How do you find out that there's a kid in school who is maybe bullying somebody or stealing something? How do you get to these children?
So we get referrals several ways. One of the good things about Adult Friends for Youth is we're really good at outreach. So we actually go right into the communities, in the parks, at the schools, or where have you, where these kids hang out. And most of the kids that we work with hang out in natural groups. So it's a matter of addressing the kids as a whole entity. So we'll walk up to them, we'll introduce ourselves, and we're consistent. Week after week, we'll come back. Kind of wear them down at some point, but the reality is that we start to build a relationship with them. And then, of course, the other ways they're referred to us is through the schools. The VPs will actually refer them, and or community members, such as their legislators out there.
Before we get into more about the youth, how did you get started? How long have you been around? And how long have you been the CEO?
Well, actually, I've been around with Adult Friends for Youth 31 years. We're only 32 years old.
Wow.
And I was lucky because I was a student at the University of Hawaii, where our program actually started from school of social work. I've been actually in the field for 21 years working with male gangs. And then I became the CEO for the past 10 years.
That is amazing. And are you ever afraid when you use the word gangs, that you reach out to the gangs?
No, a lot of what people think about gangs, they see more on TV. Most of our kids are very respectful. If you show respect to them, they show respect back. All my years of working with the male youth gangs, they've always actually been protective of me. The young men have always been protective. They've always let me know what areas they're not allowed to go because they may get into fights and stuff. But we've built some really good relationships over the years, and I've been so proud of the students I've worked with.
Deborah, tell us about some of the activities that you do with these children.
So a lot of the times, we build relationships first. And so first and foremost, we're all about counseling. So group counseling is our main. If a kid is referred to Adult Friends for Youth, we look at their whole peer entity and we pick them all out because we know that these are the kids that are going to influence each other, especially at this age. So when we build rapport with them, a lot of food is used. And, people often tell us, well, why are you feeding the bad kids? But we're often saying, oh my God, they need to eat too. Yeah. And the idea behind it is to break bread with them. So everything that we do is very therapeutic, and it's done very consciously so that we can build this relationship. And then we do a lot of fun stuff. So we have what we call a seductive phase, where we do fun stuff in the beginning, and then we get into the issues.
That's great. And give us the age group that we're talking about with Adults Friends for Youth.
So our average is about 16 years old, but we go as young as 8 years old, and we actually have as old as in high 20s, early 30s. But we don't have a termination. So that means is that if a client has issues down the road, they can always come back and get help from us.
You mentioned 8 years old. My goodness, I can't even imagine the type of trouble that an 8-year-old can get into. What would be the general type of issue with an 8-year-old?
Yeah, actually, and that's so funny because I remember when I was in elementary, I was thinking we're playing Chase Master and stuff, but these kids are so sophisticated now. I think social media has changed that a lot. So the kids get involved where they're taught at a young age, either from the home or social media, about violence. And so they engage in that, and they like to follow around the older kids and, we often see them at a fight, we often see them carrying the sticks or doing stuff or just following these older guys around.
Wow. So tell us, how do they react when you first approach them, and how do you turn them around?
Well, it's funny because when we go into the park, and we meet them for the first time, you can see a lot of hesitation. A lot of them think we're the police, actually, and so they're ready to run. A few brave souls will hang out and they'll engage with us, and when they find out we're not, then they all come. But again, I say it's consistency, and time again, we keep coming, and then we show that we're really there to help them, and we're not here to punish them. We want them to be able to help resolve their issues.
Now, you mentioned counseling. What other sort of support do you give to the youth?
Well, counseling is the main our main focus, but then we then provide other avenues, other referrals. So we also do alternative education. If they're so far behind, then we'll either place them in our competency-based program, or we'll place them in another program. Then, of course, today we had our bullying convention, and that's all about teaching kids about identifying bullying and where do you get help when you see a kid getting bullied or you've been bullied, or also to help the bullies identify you can get help too.
And tell us about that. How can kids, number one, prevent from being bullied or stop from bullying another?
Well, our whole our convention is called the Pearl. So it's about promoting peace, empathy, acceptance, respect, and love. And so today we were teaching them through skits. And what was exciting about the skits today was really a lot of the skits came from the teenagers themselves. Things that they've either experienced or they've seen in their school. So they did a skit, and then they had a discussion and gave tools to identify what they can do and especially see an adult and tell them about it.
That's great. Deborah, in closing, what is it about Adult Friends for Youth that we haven't already covered that you'd like us to know?
Well, I'd like people to know that, we're not the ones that call the kids the gangs. It's a mentality that they have, and we want to address that mentality. I think oftentimes people are afraid and say, oh, this is Hawaii and we don't have. But we're not here to scare the community. We're here to say there's an issue and we have a solution to the problem.
Deborah, thank you so much for the great job that you're doing in our community. God bless you, and aloha.
Thank you very much, Jessica.
Call Turban Chew Height, the right choice when things go wrong when you suffer serious injuries. Our experience and expertise will get you fast and fair compensation. We are skilled and aggressive advocates.
We listen to our clients, understand their injuries, and make the case for the highest possible compensation.
Put our many decades of success to work for you. I did. They're the best.
Contact Turban Chew Height at 528-4000 and put the law on your side.
I am very pleased to have as my special guest on the show, Mo. He is a director of Redirectional Services for Adult Friends for Youth. Aloha and welcome, Mo.
Aloha, thank you for the opportunity.
Tell us, what does your title mean?
We have a therapy that we use at Adult Friends for Youth called Redirectional Therapy. It was created by Dr. Sid Rosen, Deborah Spencer-Chun, just ways to reach out to work with high-risk kids.
Now, you have a story, and when I heard your story, I was just so moved by it. Where were you? You were once one of these kids that Deborah and yourself are working with. What happened?
I was bullied a lot in elementary. From kindergarten to third grade, I was bullied because of my ethnicity. And I just decided to join the gang. I felt that was the easiest thing to do. I mean, my parents loved me to death, my mom and dad, but they worked 2 jobs each. And so, I was the youngest at 8 years old that joined the neighborhood gang. After a while, violence just became the norm for my life. I didn't see myself graduating. I didn't even see living past 18, so I kind of live a homicidal, suicidal life. I ended up in prison, and my parents, when they came, they were like, that was your fault. But I met Deborah Spencer-Chun in Adult Friends for Youth when I was about 14. We used to test her. She told us from the beginning that she'll always be there, and we used to call her like 3 in the morning and she'd come out. So I knew, she became one of my first positive role models that I had. While I was in prison, my parents came and they were more upset with me and telling me that, that was the result of my lifestyle. But when Deborah came in, she came in and told me, where do we go from here? It kind of blew me away because everybody else had already written me off, Schools written me off, my family kind of written me off, but here was somebody telling me, where do we go from here? And I don't know, I told myself that if I ever got the chance, I'm gonna do something with my life.
When did you first become familiar with Deborah and Adult Friends for Youth? Was it before you went into prison, or you were familiar with the program, and then she continued to visit you while you were in prison?
Before I went to prison, I mean, she was always there counseling, working with me and my friends. My friends began to kind of sort of move on, and I was just kind of stuck because I didn't see myself going anywhere. I think prison was the turning point as far as beginning to see something, because she kept the consistency of her visiting me, the phone calls, she became a lifeline for me. I was more afraid of her than my parents or my PO.
Wow.
And it wasn't like fear, it was fear of letting her down. Mm-hmm. Because she had invested so much in me. And, for a long time, I couldn't understand or see what she was seeing. And then, when I went to college, then I kind of like, I see what you see.
It sounds like Deborah saw goodness in you, even though you were in prison, even though you were a member of a gang. Here's one human being, one nonprofit agency that she represents, Adult Friends for Youth, reaching into your heart and pulling out the goodness in you and saying, I believe in you.
Yes, that's what it is. If it wasn't for her and the therapy keeping me in contact with my, with my heart and stuff, I don't think I'd be here today.
What about faith?
Faith, I have the biggest faith in everything. I think they have given me that faith and hope. And I think that's what drives me in my job. So I'm able to do the work that I do. And no matter what kind of kids that I do come across, I always have the faith.
So let's go back to you were in prison, and then Deborah encouraged you to go to college.
So when I got out, I couldn't find a job, and she kind of told me to go to school. And I went to school originally just to keep her off my back, to keep her kind of figure out what I'm going to do with my life. Yeah. But I knew that if I went back to prison, it'll be for life. So I took that option. I went to college. I've never had A's and B's. My whole life I've always been fantastic. I had F from the top to and when I went to college, I finally got an A, and I was like, wow. And I had one C, and that C didn't look good, so I never had another C,
So then after you went to college, you got out of college, and did you approach Deborah about a job?
I was working, actually. The first semester I started, I was already working at AFY, kind of training. It felt like a natural fit for me. So I'm like a client that never left. I've been there for about 26 years as a client, and then 17 as a staff.
So the kids can look at you and say, hey, this is a guy that he's been where we are. He's not just preaching to us. Been there, done that.
And that's what's happening, because a lot of the kids that we do service are rival gang members' kids. Guys that I fought with back in the days. When I come to their house, they was like, oh. At first they're kind of shocked, and then now everybody knows what I do. And so when I show up to their house, whether they're rivals or not, I'm pretty much accepted, because the parents trust, that I know what I'm doing, that I know where I want to take their kids.
Yeah, and the kids can look at you and say, if Mo can turn his life around, hey, maybe I can too. Maybe there's hope for me.
Yes, and that's the whole goal. And I think that's where a lot of the faith and the love and, challenging these kids come from, just knowing where it can lead to and knowing what the right path can take you, and especially with education. I'm a strong believer that it can change a lot of these kids' lives.
Mo, not only are you changing kids' lives, but you have changed your own to make an incredible difference in our community and to give back to the community so much. And thank you so much for that. In closing, what is it about Adult Friends for Youth that you haven't already shared with us that you'd like us to know?
We build a meaningful long-term relationship. It's not just about the job. We're committed. We're devoted to our kids. Whether they fall down or not, we're always there to help them. Because we have kids that are doing well, and with the support they excel. And then we have kids that are not doing well. And with the support they begin to do well. So, but don't give up on our kids, because that's all our kids.
Both, thank you so much for taking time out of your very busy schedule to share with us the important work that you do with Deborah at Adult Friends for Youth. God bless you, and aloha.
Thank you.
I am very pleased to have as my special guest on the show Linda Santos. She is the Honolulu Zoo Director. Aloha and welcome, Linda.
Thank you. Welcome. Thank you for having me.
It is so good to see you again. And since September of 2017, you were officially named the Zoo Director during that month. What was it like for you?
It was very exciting. It's obviously big shoes to fill, but it was very exciting to get to be a part of seeing the zoo grow.
And speaking of seeing the zoo grow, you have worked for the Honolulu Zoo for a number of years.
Yes, I started my career here very early in 1986, and so it's been a little over 31 years at the zoo, holding multiple positions here.
You've basically spent a lot of your adult life here at the zoo.
Yes, I've been here a long time.
And you've seen a number of zoo directors come and go, and now it is your time.
Yes, it is. So, I sort of had a lot of great mentors along the way, and kind of knew what the vision of the zoo should be moving forward.
When you were named the zoo director, a lot of people were just so excited. And I was actually one of them. I was reading the newspaper. I thought, nobody deserves to be the zoo director more than Linda.
It was, very exciting. And I'm very just speechless and humbled by all the support and, just the people, the outreach they have provided to me, wishing me well. So I'm just very humbled by that experience.
So let's look back on your journey the last 30 years. Tell us about some of the positions, what has the zoo gone through, and then we're going to end up with your mission about the zoo.
Yeah, so, I started taking on a position in the zoo commissary, and then keeper trainee, zoo animal keeper. I've held almost every position, keeper 2, keeper 1, and then the bird curator. From the bird curator, I was the general curator, assistant zoo director, and now the zoo director. So I've sort of been in positions to actually be able to plan collections, actually physically do the labor part of it, be part of designing and input of facilities, and now as the zoo director, is stabilizing the budget, and the relationship with the zoo society is going well. So moving forward to see the zoo come together is very exciting.
You have been very hands-on with the animals and with working behind the scenes, and so you have a true feeling as to what goes on here at the zoo.
Yes. So being starting from the lower level, working your way up through the ranks, have given me complete, experience as to what the zoo is about, what's needed, how it works, how things that we'd like to see, things that we can improve on, and so that's what I'm hoping to bring as zoo director.
What has been your biggest challenge as the zoo director in working here at the Honolulu Zoo?
So one of the biggest challenges is, we obviously have a lot of antiquated facilities, and to bring modernization to the older facilities and getting animals into Hawaii is really difficult. There's a lot of permits involved, so it's all the logistics and trying to coordinate things. It's really challenging at times.
And you've had some high-profile animal
Yes.
stories in the zoo, recently the wallaby.
Yes. So I guess wallabies were introduced since 1916 from a pair that had escaped from a private collection. And from that two animals, they've had a sustainable population living in Kalihi Valley. From New Uanu to Halava could be the range. And most people didn't realize that that's actually a true story. We do have wallabies living in Hawaii. They're non-native. They're a species that come obviously from Australia, and this is a brush-tailed rock wallaby, so they're very good at living on cliffs and rock surfaces. And unfortunately, this little male that we have is not something that's uncommon, but they do get into fights. I guess males get pushed out of the groups by another male, and so this little guy looked like he may have succumbed to some kind of battle with another male and sustained some injuries that were threatening his ability to visually be able to see, and probably was in a lot of pain. So he had a surgery that the eye was removed, and he seems to be recovering so far really well. He is starting to eat, so we're really pleased with that. So we're just monitoring his progress right now.
Good. And you also have other animals that are favorites. Share with us about that.
Yes, so elephants are also a favorite. It's a favorite with the people that come to the zoo. They enjoy going to our elephant talks, and they get to learn about elephants in general and why they're endangered and things like that. But they're just very intelligent animals, and it's always kind of fun to watch what they're up to now, what they're doing, and they're just fantastic.
And you also have two famous apes.
Yes, we have Rusty and Violet, orangutans, and they're very popular as well.
Sorry, I should have said orangutan.
Rusty and Violet are people's favorites. They're also highly intelligent animals, and they're also very people-oriented because they sit up front and they like attention, obviously. So they're another public favorite.
We talked about some of the challenges here at the zoo. You mentioned about the antiquated facilities. What is your mission as the zoo director? Some of your goals to improve the zoo?
Yes, so the short-term vision obviously is to try and get the zoo reaccredited. So a lot has to do with making sure we have stable funding, which I think we've kind of solved that with our nonprofit on board, our concessions, and also with the charter rule amendment that gives us a stable amount of funding. So that all comes together and helps and shows that the city really wants to have the zoo, which is fantastic. And, to bring more conservation education into the aspect and design exhibits that are more modern, that fits the need of the species, also serves guest experiences, and what can we incorporate into it to make it exciting and, just a lot more animal friendly for welfare issues.
That's great. And Linda, I just want to gently go back to the accreditation issue that you mentioned. If there's somebody watching and they don't know anything about accreditation and the importance of it, can you tell us about that?
Sure. Accreditation means that, It just is something that shows that the zoo is in line with every other zoo in the nation that's accredited. It's sort of a status that you're providing the highest standard and care. And it's not that we don't already do that, but we need it to also show that we have stable funding moving forward to keep up with those standards.
In closing, Linda, what is it about the Honolulu Zoo that we haven't already shared, that you'd like us to know?
So one of the things people may not know about the Honolulu Zoo is how much conservation the zoo staff actually does. So we do a lot of conservation work, and it's both in situ and ex situ. So we have staff that will go out and actually do conservation projects. The Marianas Avifauna Conservation Project is one, and that's due to the brown tree snake. So we actually do translocations of birds to other islands. We also are working with Japan on the giant Japanese salamander project. And we support monetarily and in kind Manoa Cliff Trails, as well as things like Mabula ground hornbill, elephants.
Linda, I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your very busy zoo schedule and sharing with us what it's like to be the Honolulu Zoo Director. I wish you continued success, and thank you so much for devoting your life to the Honolulu Zoo.
Thank you for having me again. It's a pleasure to be on this show. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we're laughing at you. Yeah, we're laughing at you.
We hope that you've enjoyed the show this week. I'm going to leave you with a rich thought for the day from author C.S. Lewis, who said, "Remember that you are never too old to make another goal or to dream another dream." Think about it. God bless you, and aloha.
My, it's a beautiful world. My, it's a beautiful world. Oh, my, it's a beautiful world. My, it's a beautiful world.
With the passing of a loved one, having a reliable funeral service provider can give you peace of mind. The caring staff at Ballard Family Moanalua Mortuary will assist your family like it was their very own. At Ballard Family Moanalua Mortuary, traditional funeral service prices are lower than other funeral homes on Oahu. Place your trust in Ballard Family Moanalua Mortuary to provide the best service at the lowest cost. Quality service at an affordable cost. Ballard Family Moanalua Mortuary, increasingly preferred.